In 1974, 13-year-old Todd Bequette was kidnapped, and for the next 18 months, he was molested over 100 times and forced to lure other children to his captor, children as young as 3 years old. In 1974, 13-year-old Todd Bequette was approached by a stranger as he got off his school bus in Omaha, Nebraska. The man who was driving a Ford Fairlane station wagon approached him about getting a free mini bike. Todd said no, but the man said, "Are you sure? Because I'll take it home to your mom and dad, and if your mom and dad say it's okay, then you can have it." Once he said mom and dad, Todd said okay. When he got in the car, the man, Roy Holman, took him to a motel. He walked into the room. Terry said the minibike was in the closet area. There was no minibike, and when Todd turned around, there was a gun in his face. Terry had just escaped from prison in June 11. For 18 months, Todd was held captive. He was raped way over 100 times. He was beaten and tortured. Terry would say, "You're mine. I can do whatever I want with you, and you enjoy it, don't you?" And if Todd wouldn't answer with "Yes, I enjoy it," he'd get hit. To prevent him from escaping, Todd was tied up and drugged with Valium and sleeping pills. Sometimes Terry would wake him up abruptly and say, "Call me Dad now. I want you to call me Dad now." When he wouldn't call him Dad, he'd hit him, and he'd choke him until he passes out. "All I did was try to live, so I let him do what he wanted with me," Todd says. Todd adds that every time he tried to escape, his captor terrified him into submission. "I tried running 3 times. He put a gun to my face and said, 'If you do, I'm going to shoot you.' Then he pointed it down and emptied the .22 caliber between my legs." Todd also recalled that one of the most difficult tasks he was asked to perform was luring other children to his captor. Todd says he was sent outside to play with other children while Terry watched. He would then bring the children in, distracting them or offering them rides on his bike as part of the bait in the trap, one as young as 3 years old. And Terry would put drugs in their Kool-Aid. Terry sexually molested the children and then let them go. Todd was forced to watch as the other kids were tortured and raped. He would be beaten if he tried not to watch. Throughout the abduction, Terry was constantly moving from state to state. After 6 months, Terry forced Todd to call his family. His instructions were to tell them he was in Tennessee with friends and that he would not be returning home. In reality, Todd was in North Platte, Nebraska. But what he didn't know was that his fateful phone call gave authorities their first clue to his whereabouts. Terry had been using an alias. When the said alias didn't pay his phone bill, the phone company started tracking him down by calling numbers dialed on his account. That's when they reached Todd's brother and started to unravel the truth. At the time, authorities believed that Todd was another runaway teenager, but his parents knew the truth. They hired a private detective to help them find their son, and after another year of searching, the private detective tracked him down in Clarkston, Washington. Roy Holman, 30 at the time, was arrested at 8 p.m. at 1212 Benjamin Street, where he had lived since September 11. Also at the house was 14-year-old Todd. Sheriff deputies and 2 FBI agents surrounded the house and kept it under surveillance for more than 2 hours, in the hope that Terry might attempt to leave the house and could then be arrested without risk to the boy. Terry is listed as being armed and extremely dangerous, and officers felt that he might resist the arrest and that the boy could be injured. However, he didn't leave, and finally they had no choice but to go in. Officers did so at 8 p.m. and took Terry without any difficulties. He had a loaded pistol and a shotgun in the house, but he made no effort to use them. Todd says returning home to his family was great at first, until he had to go back to school. "Kids can be very, very cruel, and I got kicked out of school 13 times because of fights because of being called gay," he says. The parents, when I was growing up, didn't explain this to their kids, that it's not the child's fault, it's the predator's fault. In addition to his problems at school, Todd says he felt a lot of pressure from his mom. She wanted to know what happened, and questioned me because she was trying to help me, he says. She was told for me to get better, I have to talk about it, but Todd didn't want to talk about it with his parents. He was afraid that if he told them, he would lose their respect, and that's when Todd started doing drugs to escape his daily stress. "I didn't want to deal with it, the dreams and stuff like that." However, after visiting a psychiatrist, Todd was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. He also underwent treatment for his drug use. Fortunately, Todd had gone to have a happy home life. He had been married to his wife Laura for 25 years and has 3 adult children. Todd says at first, he didn't tell his wife what had happened to him. "She didn't know for years. That was one thing that I liked about her. She never judged me," he says. "It was me and only me, not what happened in the past." His experience affected the way he and his wife raised their 3 children. When he thought the children were old enough to understand, about 6 or 7 years old, Todd says he told them what happened to him. "I told them the truth, that I was sodomized. I told them everything. I was molested. I told them what sodomy is. I told them what molestation is, and all that," he says. Todd admits he was overprotective of his children. and he always made sure they knew which family member would pick them up from school each day. Todd also says he can understand why an abducted child wouldn't be able to escape. When I see the Sean Hornback case and I hear people say he had a chance to run and all that, I know that he didn't. Todd says, I tried running and I got beat, shot at, and choked until I passed out. I'm deaf in my left ear because of it, because of the beating from Terry. They put that fear into you. Todd Bequette died in July 23, 2013, at the age of 52. Todd had to bury a son and suffered a stroke several years before the heart attack that killed him. It was in February 21, 2007 that child abduction survivor Todd Bequette shared his experience of being kidnapped at age 13 and held captive for 18 months, which is where I got all the information, since the kidnapper was not prosecuted. Before kidnapping Todd, Terry had just escaped from prison. He was serving time in Oklahoma in 1972 and Oregon in 1973 in connection with a murder investigation for shooting a police officer in Oklahoma, for issuing bogus checks and forgery in Nebraska, and for sodomy and parole violation in Oregon. He was already booked and returned to an Oklahoma prison for a 30-year sentence, and the Douglas County Attorney's Office decided to dismiss the kidnapping charge against him, saying they did it to spare Todd the trauma of telling about the incident in public. However, the dismissal angered Todd and his parents. Without a trial and conviction, Terry, with a history of sex offenses against children, would be free soon, they said, and to which he is expected to be up for parole in 2008. Todd added he would have testified against Terry if he could. In 2011, Todd finally got his chance. Even though there was no chance for criminal prosecution at that late date, his kidnapper was up for parole on the cop killing charge, and Todd was invited to testify against him, which led to him being denied parole and is next up for consideration in another 5 years. Todd's relative said he finally got a sense of emotional closure after saying his piece in court, and that after so many decades, he at last felt free of his kidnapper and torture. As of where is Terry now, and whether he got out of prison or not, on his next parole. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any information about that.